The renowned band's drummer, Ringo Starr, has broken his silence on the subject of how Yoko Ono's presence drove the legendary Beatles to their breaking point, in a shocking statement that has rocked the music industry. The Beatles' conventional approach and Yoko Ono's more experimental ideas led to bitter feuds and anger. The tragic image of a band split up by creative and personal disagreements, as depicted in Ringo's moving confession, changes the trajectory of music history. A startling revelation by 84-year-old Ringo illuminates the mounting tensions within the Beatles in their latter years. He paints a picture of a band whose members, once bound together by a shared passion for music, are now drifting apart due to internal strife and outside pressures. The fact that Ono was in the studio caused a lot of tension. The band's creative process was repeatedly interrupted by Ono's suggestions and intrusions, according to Ringo, which resulted in angry confrontations and mounting animosity. John Lennon's life was never complete without Yoko Ono, and she was a frequent visitor to the studio. She altered the atmosphere just by being there, but she sows division through her active participation. Sir Richard Starkey MBE, better known by his stage as Ringo Starr, had a meteoric rise to fame after initially impressing audiences with his raw talent and charisma. Amazingly, Ringo's vitality remains unmatched even at the age of 84. His unwavering devotion to music and ability to overcome adversity served as an inspiration to a whole generation. Because of his enduring battles with health issues that began when he was just 6 years old and had him hospitalized for a large portion of his life, Ringo is still an inspiration to people today. He had the potentially fatal complications of appendicitis, a burst appendix, and peritonitis. He spent almost a year in the hospital while he endured the painful healing process. Due to his lengthy hospital stays, Ringo fell behind his classmates at school. But there was a bright side to being alone. A love of music took root in Ringo throughout these times of recuperation. The songs and rhythms that emanated from the radio captivated him, and it became his ever-present friend. As early as his teenage years, Ringo became enamored with the drums. It all began when, during one of his extended stays at the Royal Liverpool Children's Hospital, he decided to join the hospital band. Being a part of a band, even if it was just a makeshift one in a hospital, sparked a fire in him. He was enthralled by the drums' primitive rhythms and their power to propel a song's beat. He discovered that drumming allowed him to convey his thoughts and feelings in ways that words alone could not. Ringo kept up his devotion to drumming once he was able to leave the hospital. In spite of everything that was going against him, he was resolute in his pursuit of his dreams. Harry Graves, his stepfather, saw his talent and gave him his first drum set. Crucial was this gesture of generosity. It helped Ringo refine his skills and put him on the road to greatness by providing him with the resources he needed. Ringo had been performing with local bands since the late 1950s, when he was just starting out. One of the best bands in Liverpool at the time, Rory Storm and the Hurricanes, had him as a member. His maturation as a musician hinged on this time. During their lengthy stays in Hamburg, Germany, and Liverpool, England, the Hurricanes were a beloved band. The lengthy hours of performing at these performances were tough, but they helped Ringo hone his drumming chops and stage presence. During these formative years, Ringo's distinctive drumming style started to materialize. He created a rhythm that was consistent, unshowy, and dependable, which worked wonderfully with the band's style. Serving the music and keeping a steady pace, which would later become his signature, were more important to him than displaying technical skill. After losing Pete Best as their drummer in 1961, Ringo Starr's life took a dramatic change in 1962 when he accepted an invitation to join the Beatles. He was an ideal addition to the band thanks to his laid-back demeanor and dependable drumming style. A worldwide icon was soon to be born. Ringo Starr, the young man who dreamed of rhythms and melodies while lying in hospital beds for many years of his boyhood. When Ringo Starr joined the Beatles, his drumming instantly became the group's rhythmic engine. He contributed significantly to the band's success with his unique style, which was marked by brilliant fills and consistent beats. With songs like Hey Jude, Let It Be, and Come Together, the Beatles skyrocketed to popularity and became icons for many generations. When Yoko Ono, a Japanese multimedia artist, singer, songwriter, and peace activist, was involved, the story of the Beatles took a sharp turn. The band dynamic changed as a result of John Lennon's deep and consuming connection with her. Many fans, and even some members of the band, saw Ono as an outcast due to her avant-garde art and unusual lifestyle. There was conflict between her unconventional views on art and life and the more conventional ones held by the other Beatles. There was no denying the impact Ono had on Lennon. Lennon grew distant from his bandmates as she became his confidant, partner, and inspiration. Being in the studio with her served as a continual reminder of this change. In addition, the other members felt uncomfortable and resentful due to the increasing intimacy between Lennon and Ono. McCartney felt especially isolated because she and Lennon had always been co-leaders. Once a harmonious fusion of the band's individual abilities, the creative process soon became a source of contention and power battles. Their once unbreakable bond was beginning to fray, paving the way for the dissolution of the most famous band in the world. During the recording of the White Album, Ringo remembers a particularly stressful occasion because of Ono's toxic presence and input. The rest of the group considered her efforts to exert influence over Lennon's creative choices as too intrusive. Already struggling under the weight of their immense renown and the expectation that they live up to it, the band became even more fractured. It was obvious throughout these meetings, according to Ringo, that frustration and a sense of being undermined were building. While the White Album was being recorded, the matter came to a head. A climate of suspicion and animosity was fostered by Ono's persistent presence and her efforts to impact Lennon's creative choices, as shown in Ringo. Once best friends, the band members were now bitter rivals. The profound wounds caused by this turbulent time are brought to light by Ringo's moving retelling of these occurrences. Disagreements that surfaced during the making of the White Album brought attention to the widening gaps between the members of the band. The fact that Ringo briefly left the band during these sessions speaks something about the intense pressure they were under. With the band's dynamics shifting due to Ono's arrival, he felt undervalued and ignored. Even though Lennon begged him to rejoin the band, it didn't solve anything. The confession Ringo made helps to illuminate the mental and emotional toll that these confrontations had on him. The disintegration of the band he loved and the erosion of friendships are things he talks about with much sadness. As individuals pursued their own goals and interests, the previously close-knit community became increasingly fragmented. Suspicion and animosity had supplanted the trust that had underpinned their achievement. Ringo Starr's new confessions shed light on the Beatles' last years in a way that is both moving and heartbreaking. The band's descent into discord, intensified by Ono's influence, highlights how fragile even the most unbreakable bonds can be. The band's breakup created profound wounds, and Ringo's honest account of those times shows how those wounds continue to ache decades later. Ringo had his own personal struggles to contend with in addition to the band's internal conflict. His fight against alcoholism and subsequent road to recovery exemplify resiliency. In spite of everything going on around him, Ringo discovered a way to get well, and he came back even stronger and more determined than before. In addition to reviving the discussion regarding Ono's part in the dissolution of the Beatles, Ringo's confession provides a moving look into the mental and emotional toll it had on him and his bandmates. It is shocking and tragic to learn that Ono's influence contributed to the band's breakup. In looking back, Ringo remembers the hardships he endured, but also the high points that made his life and career what they were. A tale of perseverance, fervor, and atonement is Ringo Starr's biography. The latest revelation regarding Yoko Ono's involvement in the split of the Beatles has further complicated his story, but despite everything that has happened, Ringo's unwavering determination to be remembered as one of the best drummers of all time has stood the test of time. When did you first fall in love with Ringo Starr? Put your most treasured recollections down in the space provided.